host, Rodney. Take it away. Yeah. No, so this is welcome to the Business Buzz. Today we have Service General. So a lot of people will see their trucks rolling through town and maybe they don't know the people behind it. So Business Buzz tries to explore more of the people, their story, their journey, their successes, their struggles, how you can connect to the community. You're pretty much your inspiration for others in our area. So today I have Mike Quinn, Trisha? Tracy, darn it. And then Rodney. And so we have the owners, and are you just like a partner and office manager, administrator?
Office manager, partner.
Awesome, cool. So they're here to share their journey. So we try to start off as far back as possible to like high school, where you're from. Like maybe you moved from here, from somewhere else to here. Maybe you're born and raised here. I heard you're born and raised here.
Yep.
So who wants to kind of start off like how they even got in the HVAC business? I mean, go back to middle school and high school. What were you interested in?
Yep, you go.
Let's start with Mike.
Yeah, I'll start. Yeah,
Okay.
Probably the Kingmanite in the room, right?
Right.
So yeah, born and raised in Kingman. My parents moved here due to the turquoise business back in the day.
Oh, cool.
Very young people moved here because of the mine outside of Kingman. Kingman turquoise was cream of the crop turquoise, right?
Yeah.
So they came here, started a business. Were pretty successful when they were young, but they were young and kind of dumb and didn't pay the IRS their taxes.
Oh, shoot.
So kind of before I was born, I kind of lost everything. Right?
Oh, no.
So that's how we ended up in Kingman. And then I graduated high school here around 1995, class of 95, went to high school here. Right after high school, me and a buddy of mine went to HVAC school. And
Did you know that's what you wanted to do in high school?
So yeah, it's a great question because we're finishing up high school. We knew we weren't four-year university guys. We wanted some sort of trade, or military, right? So we investigated the military. Kind of funny story, right? We had a few friends a little older than us that were in the military. It was like, we really want to. His cousin was in the HVAC business.
Oh, cool.
And so we're like, hey, could we do the HVAC business in the military? And they're like, well, the recruiters will tell you yes.
Right. And then they'll put you where they need you.
They'll put you wherever they want, right?
Yeah.
And so we talked to the recruiters and we're like, uh-oh, they're lying to us or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And probably not. I love the military, right? And I kind of look back and wish I would have, maybe made a different decision, but it all worked out, right? So we basically, right after that, it was either HVAC school or computers. And so, again, his
95, I think that's the beginning of Amazon.
Correct.
Oh, okay.
And it seemed like, at the time, maybe mistake, but at the time, it seemed like the computer market was getting flooded, right? Back then, that's when...
.com bubble, I think.
Yeah, it was like getting flooded. Everybody was doing it. So we're like, let's just go into a normal trade. And so we went up to Vegas, went to the HVAC school. It was a one-year school. Got up there, got government loans because we were poor kids.
Yeah.
and that's in Kingman, right? I always like to say I lived in about 15 different little mobile homes throughout the community, and most of them started with bird names or,
right.
So I'm a member of the community for sure.
Yeah.
Anyways,
Was there a lot of other HVAC companies in the area at the time, or was there in Kingman?
In Kingman, so we knew a couple of the owners' kids that we went to high school with, right? So that was the other logic. Hey, we could get a job from so and so's
right,
dad,
maybe work for somebody else. Okay,
yeah.
Cool.
And so we go up to the school, got government loans. That's important because towards the end of the story, we're going to air conditioning school for about 7 months. We go on Monday and. Go to school on this one Monday, and there's chains wrapped around the door handles of the school.
Oh, no.
And we're like, what's going on? And it just said school closed. And we're like, what the heck? Interesting part is we were through all the air conditioning stuff. We were going into like gas heating and kind of things that weren't as important as the HVAC classes. So the negative was we didn't get a little certificate that said we finished.
Yeah.
But as we started researching, it's in this business, it's what you know, right? It is what you know. You don't need a certificate necessarily.
Right.
You can learn from another person or books or whatever you need to do to get in a trade. And so we were able to basically move back to Kingman. My buddy moved back to Kingman first. He got a job. I came back. They liked the way he was working. That company hired me right away. But the coolest thing about the government shutting the school down is those loans we got.
Oh, yeah.
They got forgiven.
Oh, yay! That's cool.
Totally legally.
Yeah, right.
So we were able to hit the ground running, no student debt. Worked for this local company here in town, me and him, for about 7 years. and they actually sold to a larger organization, a franchise.
Yeah.
And that was in 2004. So 2004 then comes along. They sell. Me and my buddy never wanted to work for this particular company, just because rivalry, right? It'd be like Miami Dolphin player going to play for the Patriots, right? It's just weird, right?
Yeah.
And then we. So then we're like, let's just do it on our own. So we analyzed our finances. I happened to be on vacation when that all happened. I was in Mexican Rocky Point, so my cell wasn't working back then, and the cells weren't as good, right? I get back and there's 1,000 messages on my phone. So I get back. We figure out that we have about $20,000 in our retirement. We both pull ours out. Total, we knew we could make it about 3 months. So we took the leap, started a new air conditioning company at that time, and it went successful right off the bat. Right, we were able to get clientele. Back then, you could just walk into commercial companies and just talk to them, and kind of and we provided a really good customer service. People ask us how we grew, so we asked how we grew our business so fast that first year. And we simply said, we answered our phone and went on the calls. That's all we did. Like, there was no special recipe.
Yeah, there isn't some magic behind it. But
that's the story I share with all the kids I'm around now, and I'll go into that story later. So anyway, that company I owned, in 2006, I met Rodney. He came on board with the company I was at, right? And he just jumped right in. We didn't know if we could keep him busy enough. And sure enough, I think he was busy every day from that point on, doing all sorts of stuff. Yeah. And then a few years later, we hired Tracy. So then the story goes even further of, many years later, 2018, I decided it's a time and place, family and all that, to sell my company, or sell my half. So I sell my half to my business partner.
And at that time, he had the business itself had even expanded all the way to Vegas at that point, or not
yes.
yet? Yeah, you guys are already.
Yeah, we were very large.
I'm even seeing
we
billboards.
went from just me and him in a truck that I borrowed from my brother.
Yeah.
And a $1,000 little Chevy truck.
Yeah.
To 53 employees when I actually decided to sell my half of the company.
Yeah.
And the reason was because the kids were they were teenagers. I wasn't seeing them very much. I wanted to do that, and I wanted to explore some other options. So I got into some public service stuff, Chamber of Commerce. I was the chairman there for a little while, for the 1 year, on the board for 6 years. I started exploring coaching more in depth, so I got involved with the middle schools. Now I'm in the high school, interim head coach right now for Lee Williams High School.
Yeah.
Right, so moved on to that for the 5 years, right, just really concentrating on coaching and community.
Yeah.
So then an opportunity came up when my non-compete was over. I had a 5-year non-compete from selling.
Yeah.
When my non-compete was over, Rodney had a company, right, that was very successful, right, and so I decided to just... Hey, we had been talking. Let's join forces. I kind of want to get back into it, get my tool bag going, or get my brain working in a different way again. And we just joined the team and hit the ground running. Yeah,
you hear that a lot. I hear that a lot of people who will go into like a retirement phase, but then they're like, I actually really liked what I was doing, and it was like, but instead it feels like more like a hobby you're getting paid for now, instead of it being an actual work, a job, when you started it.
Oh, and with these two, it's like family now, right? Like, it's definitely just so easy, so fun, right? That's why I tell people I'm having fun again, right? Whereas coaching football, believe it or not, if you've seen my picture in the yearbook, right, I was like least likely to ever coach high school football.
Oh, how funny.
Yeah, that's not my thing. I just happen to manage people, manage situations and politics kind of well, and so so as I stepped into the coaching world, I gravitated to be able to just handle certain situations really well and coach the kids and everything else, read books, right? Just do the things you have to do. But that I did not really play. I played my freshman year in high school. Baseball, my son's a baseball and football player, right? I coach baseball. I'm the assistant varsity coach for Lee Williams as well. So it just all came together.
You kind of, it's almost like you were a coach though, growing a business. Because you got all these employees. Those are like your students, your teammates. They're all teammates with each other. They have to work well together. And certainly since you instilled that customer service side of it, when you're playing sports, you have to get along.
Yeah.
Your personalities have to kind of be set aside, and your teammates, need to be part of that team, and you need to work together to get to the end of the goal. So customer service with your guys' business is really similar.
Yep.
You all are working together. together. When that call comes in and it comes into one place and it has to get dispatched out to another, there needs to be this nice communication with each other is so critical. And I know for a fact that in the professional services or the skilled trades area, that is definitely the biggest gripe people have is the non-responsiveness and the lack of communication, the lack of response getting back to you, the timeliness. Those things are the biggest gripe, and we're living in a scary world where it seems like there's fewer people going into skilled trades than there was 10 years ago, 15 years ago. So I'm sure that that's something that you guys are probably seeing on a front lines type basis. There's not as many people applying as there used to be or showing interest. So
super, super interesting that you said that, because the last 15 years we've been going to business classes or whatever you go to. They called this 15 years ago. They knew there was going to be a huge labor shortage in all trades, right? And I'll let Rodney talk about it later, but we have a plan for the local community as well with a school that we're starting, right? Trying to get more, me being involved with the high school and everything else, trying to get some high school kids involved. And man, the what would you call it? The momentum is shifting from schools to trades. Now there might be a side effect going the other way, but now in this local community, we need it.
Yeah,
we need electricians, plumbers, HVAC techs, everything we possibly can, nurses, right?
Yeah.
So which MCC's had a great nursing program for many years, but they're just starting to get their trade schools in order, and we're partnering with them as well.
Yeah, awesome, much needed. So that's pretty sweet. He just said that was a good story. He brought everybody into it too. So like, who wants to go next and kind of talk about how you got to that point?
So I actually opposite. I out of high school still didn't know what I wanted to do. So worked in basically fast food jobs and stuff like that, and finally got a sales job at JCPenney's, and I thought I was living life because I was on commission selling suits. Woo! And I could eat Olive Garden all you can eat soup and salad for $4.99. And I ended up meeting someone who ended up becoming my wife and mother of my sons. And her aunt was actually a dispatcher for an HVAC company. Okay. So I always worked at night selling suits, and we'd go visit her, bring her lunch, stuff like that, because her and her aunt were only 6 years apart, so they were close. And the gentleman that owned that company always would be like, why do you work such a sissy job? When are you going to come get your hands dirty?
Right.
After about 4 or 5 months of that going on, I finally decided to give it a shot. And I got into it, and I loved HVAC for the fact of the job changes every day. You're always seeing something new. You're where you work, you're always going into a different business or a different person's house. It's always a change of scenery and always a new challenge on a daily basis. So I stuck it out. I ended up, because of the trade of the hours, we ended up separating. And so me and my sons ended up moving out here to be closer to my mom. And that's when I started working for Mike. And I loved Ambient Edge in the sense of the family environment. Like he said, he started in 2004. I started in 2006. Coming out here as a single dad with 3 kids, I had struggles at first. Mike and his partner bought me a car right off the bat and said, here you go. Hey, so it was a very family-oriented business, and they helped me out knowing my situation. And so I helped grow with the company. And one of the things I said was, like, we had, even at that time, we were having a hard time struggling hiring people. And I said, because my old boss was really big in training back in California, and it was actually the instructor of the college in California in HVAC. So I said, let me start training people and teaching people. And so they allowed me to basically grow a teaching, and we started training technicians. Ironically, I want to say 8 or 9 of those technicians actually ended up starting their own air conditioning businesses. So we were doing a good job. Yeah. As he said, the company grew to 53 employees. One of the things that I always enjoyed was I love the family environment, and that was always the thing. I never, ever wanted to work for a conglomerate company. I liked the family atmosphere and family business. So when Mike left and it was going that way, I decided that it was time for me to move on. My sons were adults at the time, so we ended up starting our own company. And we still kept trying to train. Of course, now I'm brand new, so it's harder for me to do certain things. After about, I don't know, we were still friends the whole time. After about 5.5 years, we were talking, and he had jokingly said something about his non-compete was up. And so I basically was like, well, Mike, I'll be honest with you. I am a great technician. I could fix anything in the world. But when it comes to business, I lack the business. I just don't have the business skill set. I never went to school for it. I just don't understand it.
Yeah.
And I could really, really use you on this. And so hence Mike came on board.
Yeah.
When Mike came on board, one of the first things we did is we talked about the training program. We had the one at Ambient Edge that we'd been doing 15 years. So we found out the state actually offers an apprentice program, and they sponsor people that want to go through it, through the high schools and stuff like that, through trades. So we actually partnered with the state to basically take high school kids, teach them not just the going out into the field part of it, but the book side of it, and they can train through us for 4 years and actually get a state journeyman card in HVAC that they can take anywhere. And the benefit of that also is that the state, depending on where you are, the state will help you financially with some of that too.
That's
some of the
cool.
burden. So we get that. And for us, the greatest thing in it is when we were all done, we're actually the only HVAC company in Mojave County now that offers that. So it's kind of a big deal.
That is a big deal.
And so what it does is it helps us partner with the schools. We've been talking with WAVE, MCC, and helping them so we can grow this even more.
Yeah.
Bring more people into the trades.
Yeah. I think the people that watching this, like, they all have been on the other side of the phone trying to get a hold of people needing this type of stuff, and this is like a huge opportunity. And they all have kids and cousins and nephews that are looking and trying to find direction. Just like, hey, do I go on in the military? Do I go to try to do this? And like now, you're removing a friction point and an obstacle, which was possibly the financial part for them to have to invest in getting this type of thing going. And now that burden is kind of getting out of the way. That's really cool.
The great thing about this program too, I mean, to go another level, is that we are partners with the state, sure, but we could actually, because we know so many air conditioning, HVAC business owners, we could actually send apprentices to them. So it's not just for Service General, it's for everyone, right?
Yeah.
It's to make the community better, not just our company,
Yeah.
right? So we want to help the community, want to get these kids working right out of high school, get them in a good trade, get them with a good salary, and move on in life.
Oh, heck
that's our goal. So,
yeah, which is great.
Yeah, like we said, it's very family and community oriented. That's
Yeah, and that's something that's really important too. I mean, I think you guys now are really, one of the family owned and operated. I know that there was another company in the area that was around for a long time, and then they ended up selling, I think, to a Havasu business. So like, you guys are still like the deep rooted, like Kingmanite business that's like continuing, and now you're reinvesting in the community, like you said, to raise the entire thing, not just your own business, because and it all helps with everybody, right? When they say when you raise the tide, all the boats rise with it. And so you're going to give more opportunity for their significant others to find good jobs, and the schools are going to do much better. And there's just so much of a trickle down effect that happens when you give people a good paying wage job. They spend more money in the economy, the local economy, which means that the small boutiques and shops and restaurants are doing better. I mean, there's so much that goes to it, which is great.
Yeah, and same thing with like just coaching wise, right? We always say it when we're coaching football or baseball or whatever sport it is, right? We're not just coaching the athlete, we're coaching the human, right? We're teaching those kids to become men.
Yeah.
And now this is kind of cool for me because now I get to see these kids possibly go from a coaching atmosphere to a work atmosphere and see them grow up as adults, like successful adults. So super cool for me.
Yeah, heck yeah. So your introduction in was back in 2006, I think you said?
11.
So I started with Ambient probably in 2012. So I was born and raised in Vegas, and I started my air conditioning career in Vegas, so in 1995.
So go before that. Before you got into HVAC, what did you want to do? What were your aspirations, hobbies? Did you want to be an opera singer? Because I like to see how everybody's interests at one point now have aligned. And how did that happen?
So I'm going to be honest. I mean, my first air conditioning job was just a job to me. So I was married, we were having kids, and my husband held the job. So to me, it was just extra money. I was there for probably about 6 years and kind of moved up the line. I still didn't think of it as a career though.
Right.
It wasn't really until I started working with Mikey that I actually thought of it as a career. So I've been in the industry for about 20 years. Yes, it wasn't until I started working at Ambient Edge, and we stayed there. I was there until Mikey left. A little while after Mikey left, I went and worked with said franchise. and went from dispatcher to lead dispatcher to office manager to operations manager.
Cool.
Moved up fairly quickly there. And that's really when my career kind of took off. So I did fairly well there. And then Mike and Rodney enticed me to come over. So I'm definitely the newest one there. But excited to be back with family for sure. So, and you know, these guys don't give themselves enough credit. I just want to say that these guys are so involved in our community, way more than any company I've ever worked with is involved in our community. And I also want to point out too, there's a lot of air conditioning companies in this area. And I'm going to say that between Rodney and Mike, they've managed and trained a lot of those owners. So, and that's pretty cool, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and some people would look at that like a negative. I don't. Again, like probably my coaching blood in me. Right? It's like a badge of honor. Like it's almost like a coaching tree where, man, if we can get more business owners that are successful, right? It's fine. There's enough to go around for everyone, right? There's enough work. We're busy, and we can't. Although all these air conditioning companies are in town, we can't keep up during the summer, right? So we can keep everybry busy with a paycheck and just keep the community growing.
Right.
Absolutely. Good leaders train leaders.
What's been some of the what's been probably the most unpredictable part of the business? So, I mean, I think it'd be easy for someone on the outside to be like, well, the weather.
Well, before they came on, the hardest thing for me was COVID. I mean, COVID hurt us.
Talk about unpredictable, right?
COVID, our part supplies went down, so we had a hard time getting parts. And then after we finally got the parts under control, then we got new regulations for energy efficiency, so that made equipment start getting more difficult. This year, actually, now we're running more into equipment probability because now we have new guidelines on refrigerant because the refrigerants we use contribute to global warming, and so according to the government, and so there's changes there too.
Is that the Freon?
The refrigerant they use. Freon's kind of like a brand name. Think of it like a Maytag washer.
Can I jump into there? I have a funny story about Freon. Right. So the first day of refrigeration school up in Vegas, the story I told, right? This guy's name was Dan. And Dan was like the instructor, right? And he walks in and he's like, I never want to hear the F word in this class. And we're like, what? We're only like 18, like, we would never say that. He's like, you never ever can say the F word. And he said, the F word is Freon. He said, what Freon means is, it's a name brand. It's like Nike.
I didn't know that.
It's called refrigerant. And so we were allowed, if we said it, right, we would get docked points on or whatever we were working on.
Put a quarter in the jar, the F jar.
So it's just a funny thing that stuck with me. And my mom still calls it Freon, right? But it's like one of those things where
I remember hearing about it a couple years ago because I knew a guy that owns funeral homes, and they could not purchase new refrigeration units that use this stuff. So they were fixing all their old, but the supply chain was gone from getting it. So once you were out. So they were doing weird stuff like cutting holes in sides of coolers and attaching air conditioning units, like wall units, onto the refrigeration so that they didn't have to go to the new system because they were so much more expensive, I guess, whatever this new, whatever they're doing now.
Availability too.
It is. And the history lesson there, because like I said, we teach, is that when way back in the 1900s, a lot of the refrigerants we used were propane and stuff like that, which were very flammable, or ammonia, which was very corrosive. So DuPont came out with Freon 12. That's what they called it. And that was the very first refrigerant. It was called Freon 12. DuPont held the patents on it. And that's where the name comes from, is because everything came from that. Because everything DuPont made, whether it was Freon 22 or Freon 502, which were the first three, that was the beginning. And then when patents all ran out in the mid-90s, then everybody could make refrigerant. And so we had to stop calling it Freon. It was now refrigerant.
Isn't that crazy how branding works? I remember
good branding, though.
Still today, people still use it.
So I remember all the way up to like elementary school, I used to call soda Pepsi. any type of soda, I thought it was called Pepsi. And it was because my mom, her family used to own a Pepsi Cola plant when she was little, so she called everything Pepsi. They were not allowed to say the C word.
That's funny.
Yeah, so like I just got used to hearing that so much that I remember I was at school, like elementary school, and we left and we were doing something at like a party, and I was like, oh, can I have a Pepsi? And they're like, oh, we don't have any Pepsi. We have like Mountain Dew, or we have Dr. Pepper. And I was like, yeah. And they're like, well, you said you want a Pepsi. Like, yeah, Pepsi. And they're like, so I had to learn the lesson there.
Yeah, it was opposite in my house. It was Coke, right?
Oh, okay, yeah.
And then a friend of mine was from back east, and they called it soda pop.
Yes, I'm from back east. So I've heard a lot of soda pop, and just pop only. You know, the Canadians all say pop. That used to drive me nuts. I used to live right next to the Canadian border, so
it's the same thing. That's
I bet the crab was good.
Yeah, oh yeah, everything, yeah. But not the snow. The snow, I'm glad to be out. But we talk about, HVAC stuff, man. I mean, I lived in homes, and even when I lived in Portland, Maine for like 15 years, having to fill the diesel into the big ass tank, every winter for like $1,500, get it filled with whatever that diesel fuel stuff was.
It's fuel number 2. It's
okay,
what they use on all those oil burners.
And it's just like that was, and the old radiators with the hot water going through them. We, lived in. I think my place that I lived at, it was built in 1892. And it had pumpkin pine floors and old radiators, and it was just crazy. Like,
and they still use a lot of that stuff, though. Ironically,
yeah.
You say it's old, but there's still a lot of it back there if you go. Yeah, it still works.
Yeah. So unpredictable stuff. COVID definitely a big one. Supply chain stuff. Yeah, go ahead.
I got some things about unpredictability from the very beginning. Right, it was very interesting the way me and my old business partner started. Then when Rodney came along, being in a small town puts us in an interesting situation where we have to work on everything, right? We're working on Mrs. Smith's evaporative cooler that, is 20 years old, to the little reach-ins at restaurants, to chillers out at the airport, right? Big industrial units, right? Have to work on so much stuff. But when you're young like that and you're learning, it's just kind of like it builds a memory, and it doesn't seem weird, right? Like, it's normal. So then when we would hire people, as we opened up our own business, and we would hire new technicians, other than Rodney, actually, it's like the lack of knowledge people had from that we expected from other big cities. Right. It was very central minded, right? Like they were either residential guys or commercial guys or refrigeration guys. They weren't universal. So it was kind of neat. And that's, again, the reason I want to spread the knowledge we have is like being in a small town, I think really benefit us in this trade, because you can't just work on one thing, or you really shouldn't. Yeah. So that's why Rodney's class that he's created really goes from like, A to Z in the refrigeration industry, right? And so he really has everything in there. So there'll be universal knowledge where you could go really anywhere on the planet. But that was the biggest thing, like just trying to find help, right? And then me and Rodney were trying to solve the problem, like how do we get good help? We try to train our own. Then we're talking about work ethic and all that stuff that the kids are learning. And then if we hire from outside, then it's the knowledge. So that's when we're like, okay, how do we solve it? Well,
standardize the training.
Yeah, create the school.
Right?
And we did it this year. That's our new claim to fame. Now we'll see how this goes. Right? We just started it.
Where are you doing? Are you doing it at a physical place, like you're using the MCC space? Or
we don't have a physical space yet. We've talked to Wave. So MCC is opening up their place at the airport. Yeah, and we've talked to them and have had meetings with them. To basically help them with that.
College.
And so that's where we're going to start. Yeah, and so we're going to start helping with that project. We've also, Wave, I think, is looking at getting a building here next year or two. So we've been intricately working with them. Right now, we're just doing it out of our place of business. We have a handful of guys that work for us, plus we have a handful of guys from other businesses. But because we are state recognized now, there is a tuition fee that you got to pay. The state does try to help with some of that, but so it's open to everybody. We're not. It's because my thing is everybody. We're all in this together.
For sure.
One of the other reasons why I got into it is I remember I was watching TVs back in the early 2000s, and I saw I was watching the news, and they basically had 4 or 6 Phoenix companies come troubleshoot a unit. And cool. Out of all 6 of them, only one of them diagnosed it right. The other 5 were all wrong. And the news program was like, they're dishonest, they're trying to steal, stuff like that. me, I don't believe people are dishonest. I just don't. It just, I don't know, maybe it was the way my mother raised me. I have a hard time believing that most people are, I just believe people are inherently honest. I just thought it was lack of training. They just didn't know. So we got into it, basically teach them, so because we're all in together. So if one of us makes a bad name, then all of us. And interesting, I watched a news program about 10 months ago because I still try to keep up on stuff, and it was in Connecticut. And they did the same thing, and they made the simplest little thing wrong. So the one I watched, it wasn't the simplest thing. This was like the simplest thing wrong. We had 4 companies, and 3 of the companies were honest. Only one of them. And that guy I would have to say.
So what you're saying is we should do a show like that. The Bee investigates.
You can.
And we'll set up a whole thing, call it, secret cameras hidden.
That guy I do think was dishonest. I watched what happened.
There are some bad apples.
Yeah, he was a little dishonest there. He ended up leaving it's ironic though. It was funny because he left his tools there too. He was so embarrassed and took off.
Oh no.
But no, we're all in this together,
Yeah,
and so
for
us, it's we make the industry look whole, which in general makes everybody
100%.
Keeps everybody happy. So.
I agree with you. It actually happens. That happens to me in marketing. There's a lot of bad actors in the marketing world that will come into a local community and they will snake oil sales success. And they will come in and they will burn bridges and then leave. And then when nice Steve comes in and says, oh, hey, I have a marketing company, I'm local. Like, yeah, we already dealt with this. We already did this last year. They told us, they promised us all these things and they didn't do it. They didn't follow through. So it does, if you can if you can get everybody on the same page when it comes to your reputable and professional and handling things the way you should, it does help the entire industry because people stop losing so much faith in your industry, and they start to build confidence back into it.
Right.
So I could see that for sure. So where does the future hold for Service General? So this teaching thing is a big opportunity, and that's going to grow, certainly as you're tying into the waves, the MCCs or Mojave College. Even Arizona at Work has some programs that might be able to help.
Oh, we're partnered with them too.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
So if you go to Arizona at Work's website and you look training, it'll pop us up too for the RTI.
So like 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, are you going to go through the same thing and want to retire out for a little while, come back? What is your kind of like 5 to 10 year thoughts on where you're at?
I like teaching. Of course, my goal is as we said, family oriented. My sons work for us now and are in the business.
Oh, that's cool.
But I like teaching. So if you ask me, I think your brain is a muscle like every other muscle in your body, and if when you stop using it, you die. So I don't know if I'm ever going to truly get out or retire.
Yeah.
I just will probably go more into the teaching aspect. Like we started, I work with Mojave College. We'd like to eventually, we talked to Wave locally here. We'd like to basically cover all of Mojave County, reach out to Bullhead schools, reach out to the Havasu schools, and start going in that route and trying to get people back in the trades. When I was growing up, it was college, and part of me thinks that that's one of the reasons why the trades are lacking so much is because they didn't push them, so nobody got into them. And so it's nice to see that the change is back into, hey, who's going to build the homes that you're all going to live in with your college degrees? And so, and so
who are you going to call?
Yeah, and so what I'd like to do is see it expand that way. As far as Service General, we just plan on just keep on being just a family-oriented business and doing the right thing and helping customers out. But as far as the bigger thing is just the industry as a whole, if we can impact and make it so that people feel like they can call an HVAC company, whoever it is, and feel like they're being treated honestly and fairly, then that's the goal.
Yeah.
So
for the person who's kind of a serial entrepreneur at this point, I think you can. Is there any other industry that you're looking at tackling, or any other business type?
Well, interesting, right? I'm very community orientated. Matter of fact, I forgot to even mention, right? In 2018, when I sold the company, I wanted to do something for the community. So I actually opened up batting cages down on Northern. Quinn's cages, right? So a small little batting cage. I wish I could have done more. But, I wasn't willing to take that big risk and do like a family fun center. That takes a lot. That takes a lot. But so I did something real little. It's doing fine. It's still open, right? And it'll be open forever, right? Even if I have to subsidize it, right? So that stuff, just get more community involvement, right? My 5-10 year plan is get this Service General's mission statement, right? We do want to be the premier HVAC company that everyone wants to work for, right? That wants to come do the schooling, right? Even if it's associated, in a different building eventually. Again, I've worked with Dr. Klippenstein over at MCC a lot, like with the Chamber of Commerce board and all that, and different committees that we're on. and they've been nothing but helpful. Matter of fact, it kind of made me nervous because when we were talking about the school, we didn't even think of like who we were competing against. And one day, he probably remembers the phone call. I call him up. I'm like, are we competing with MCC? Because it kind of feels like we are, right? So then I immediately called Dr. Klippenstein. I'm like, hey man, I don't want to. And he's like, no, we love it. Like let's work together. And so we've had meetings like once a month. And we're helping them with their curriculum to make it more field-based, make it more universal-based.
Practical.
And so I'm a big community guy, as you know, and that's what I want to see. I want to see us grow into the community more. I would love to see other things grow, but as far as expanding like we did before to Vegas, and I've told them I'm not interested. Big. I want to keep it. I want to keep it tight.
There's a lot of people living just in Mojave County, just the tri-state area, the Bullhead Havasu Kingdom.
I would love to expand it to the Mojave County area and just keep it real, grow the right way to grow, which I've learned some lessons in the past, right? Learn some lessons, and I think that's the right thing to do. I think it's just keep it small, help out other contractors if needed, right? Gain our commercial accounts back throughout the years that we provided just an excellent service. And again, answer our phones and come out on calls, right? So And then again, other things I want to do for the community, right? Downtown's renovated. It looks great. The city council's done amazing there. The city of Kingman's done great, right? So now maybe there's something down there, like I can help with the community as time goes on, right? Like that's kind of where I'm at.
And are you still running next month for the MCC board?
Oh, yeah, and I am running. I'm a write-in candidate. Mike Quinn, MCC.
Very cool.
I don't want to, thanks, Rodney. He's going to talk to you after, right? See if there's something we can do. District 4 write-in candidate.
Oh, cool.
And the reason I was so late and didn't get on there is because kind of the school thing was all happening. We started dealing with MCC more. It's like, man, I want to have more influence or want to be on some decision making with the school. If we want to go trades, I think it's the right place for me. Just get on that board and try to get these kids. Again, it's about the kids, right? Let's get these kids. Old friend of mine said, idle hands will find something to do. So if you let these teenagers not do anything, they're going to find the wrong things to do. So let's give them the right things to do.
Absolutely, And I've had broken windows to attest to that exact same. And I'm watching the cameras. I can't see them, but I can hear them. And I'm like, that sounds like they're in middle school. What are you doing out? Throwing rocks at windows. Yeah, for sure. So that's very cool. Well, thank you for being here. Anything else you want to so you had a couple of promos that are going on until middle of November, which might be important for people to just know. So like some 0% financing and some $1,500.
Train right now, train for the end of the year, close out just because, like I said, next year we're going to have new refrigerant guidelines, which are going to add certain cost to the equipment that is going to raise the price of equipment for 10-15%. And it's all brand. It's not just Train, it's everybody.
Right.
Because of these new refrigeration guidelines we have to follow. So Train's running a promo from now till November 15th, $1,500 instant rebate and 0% financing for 60 months.
Cool.
So if anybody's interested in that, plus
you don't hear that 0% thing right now.
Not anymore,
either. So that's a really good opportunity.
And then now, I mean, it's starting to cool down. So if you haven't had your heater looked at, now would be the time. Carbon monoxide, if you Google it, is still a risk, and the biggest point of getting your furnace checked out is just to avoid those risks to make sure it's going to last through the winter.
Right. Yeah.
So and ours is $69.
Yeah. Good. Cool. Awesome. Anything you can think of on an office level, your world? Anything you want?
On the spot here.
Don't leave 10-minute voicemails. I don't know. There's like little tips. I don't need your whole life story on the voicemail. Just tell us your name and number. We'll call you right back.
It gets cold.
Don't wait until
don't wait till it gets cold.
There you go.
There you go.
Thanks, Mike.
Got you.
Cool. Okay. All right. Anything that you can think of? Last minute stuff?
Oh yeah. I mean, again, just
vote
help
for Mike.
Vote for Mike.
District 4
governors, right?
Yeah.
But more importantly, right, keep your kids in school, right?
Yeah.
Have them investigate trades they like. It doesn't have to be HVAC, plumbing, electrical, whatever it is. Right? Keep them busy. Keep them on football teams, right? Our football teams I had to take over as an interim head coach because our head coach unfortunately got an illness and had to step down. So we're struggling with numbers, and he came in the off season from out of state. So I think it disconnected some of the kids from the existing coaching staff. So we're kind of short numbers, man. Keep your teenagers on sports, into trades, in school, of course. Right. And just keep them busy. I think it's really important for our community.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you for being here. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay.